Have you ever been stuck between two really great choices, but you just didn't have the resources to do both? Well, that's a constant battle in the business world. You could have two amazing, super profitable products, but you've only got so much time, so many materials, or a limited number of skilled people. So how in the world do you decide where to focus to actually maximize your profit? As you're about to see, the most obvious answer is almost always the wrong one.
So let's get right into it. We're going to unpack a really powerful way of thinking that can help pretty much any business make smarter, way more profitable decisions, especially when things are tight.
Here's the roadmap for our journey. We'll kick things off with a classic profitable dilemma, and we'll look at what seems like the most obvious answer. Then, we're going to introduce a game-changing idea, the constraint. From there, we'll jump into two hands-on case studies, one focused on labor hours and the other on machine hours, to see how this whole thing plays out in the real world. And finally, we'll wrap it all up by figuring out how you can spot the critical bottleneck in your own work.
Okay, to make this all really concrete, let's meet a fictional company called Kayaks for Fun. They're actually facing a challenge that comes with being successful.
So they make two awesome products, the river kayak, which is designed for zipping down fast-moving water, and the sea kayak, which is built for those long open ocean tours. Now, both of these models are popular, and they both make good money. Here's the catch. The company has limited resources. They can't just crank out an infinite number of each one, so they have to make a really tough call about where to put their energy.
So, let's do what any good business would do and look at the numbers. At first glance, this decision seems almost laughably easy. One of these products looks like the clear, hands-down winner. All right, take a look at this. We're looking at the contribution margin, which is basically just the profit a company makes on a single item after covering the costs to make it. For the river model, wow, that's a huge $400 per kayak. Now compare that to the sea model, which brings in $150. I mean, that is a massive difference.
So this is a no-brainer, right? Case closed. You just pour every last resource into making the river kayak. It brings in more than double the profit every time you sell one. But hold that thought, because we're about to add a super crucial new layer to this whole puzzle.
And this is where it all gets really interesting. We have to talk about the hidden factor that changes almost every business decision you'll ever make, the constraint.
A constraint, you might have heard it called a bottleneck, is really simple. It's any resource that you don't have an unlimited supply of. It could be the number of hours your amazing team can work. It could be the time a specific machine can run, or even a particular raw material that's just tough to get. The real secret to unlocking your max profitability is all about finding and managing this one limiting factor.
So here's the big shift. Instead of just looking at profit per product, we need to look at a way more powerful number, the contribution margin per unit of the constraint. I know, it sounds a little academic, but the idea itself is super simple. You just take the profit each product makes and divide it by how much of your most limited resource it eats up. This one little calculation tells you which product gives you the biggest bang for your buck from that precious, scarce resource.
Okay, enough with the theory. Let's apply this new way of thinking to our friends back at Kayaks for Fun. We're going to dive into their first real-world scenario.
So it turns out that finding skilled craftspeople who can build these high-quality kayaks is really hard. Because of that, Kayaks for Fun has a very firm limit, a constraint of just 320 skilled labor hours every single month. That's it. That's their bottleneck.
Okay, let's break this down. That river kayak, the one with the huge $400 profit, takes 4 hours of skilled labor to make. So you take $400, divide it by 4 hours, and you get $100 per labor hour. Now, let's look at the sea kayak. Yeah, it has a smaller profit, just $150, but it only takes 1 hour to make. That means it generates $150 per labor hour. And just like that, the obvious choice has been completely flipped on its head.
This chart just makes that shift in thinking crystal clear. The moment we start measuring profitability by our most limited resource, in this case, labor hours, the sea kayak is suddenly 50% more profitable per hour. It's the smarter choice for the business, even though it brings in less profit per sale. It's pretty incredible. And here is where the rubber really meets the road. If Kayaks for Fun dedicates all 320 of its precious labor hours to making the sea kayak, they can generate a total contribution margin of $48,000. Now think about this. If they had stuck with the more profitable river model, they would have only made $32,000. That's a $16,000 difference in their pocket, just from looking at the numbers through the right lens.
But wait, what happens if the situation changes? Business is never static, right? Let's imagine Kayaks for Fun goes on a hiring spree and manages to find more skilled workers. So labor isn't the constraint anymore. Now a totally different bottleneck shows up.
Okay, so they've got plenty of staff now, which is great, but the new limiting factor is their specialized molding machine. They only have 3,000 hours of machine time available each month, period. The bottleneck has literally moved from their people to their equipment.
So let's run the numbers all over again with this new constraint. The river kayak, it still makes that great $400 profit, but it uses up 16 hours of machine time. That comes out to $25 per machine hour. Now the sea kayak makes $150 and uses 10 machine hours, which only gives it $15 per machine hour. Would you look at that? The winner has flipped again.
And there you have it. With machine time as the new bottleneck, the river kayak is now the undisputed champion. It generates a way higher return for every single hour that specialized machine is running.
And you know what? The financial impact is even bigger this time around. By shifting their priority to the river kayak, the company can now generate a total contribution margin of $75,000. They've perfectly optimized their production around the new constraint, and they've unlocked way more profit because of it.
All right, so let's tie all of this together into a really powerful, practical lesson that you can apply to almost any situation where you don't have enough of something to go around.
What this really all boils down to is that the best or most profitable product, it isn't a fixed title. It completely 100% depends on what your specific bottleneck is at that moment. Your strategy has to be flexible, it has to adapt to whatever your constraints are.
So what's the big takeaway here? It's a fundamental shift in how you think. First, stop focusing only on profit per item. That's the old way. Your first job now is to identify your true bottleneck, your most limited resource. Second, you calculate which product or service gives you the absolute highest return on that specific resource. And finally, you organize your entire operation around maximizing every last drop of output from that bottleneck. That right there is the secret to maximizing your overall profitability.
And you know, this isn't just for kayak companies. Every organization, every project, heck, even our personal goals have constraints, whether it's our time, our money, or our energy. So the real question this leaves us with is, have you correctly identified your bottleneck and are you truly making the most of it?